My name is Donna Burns, and I'm one of the moderators for this event this evening. Our second moderator is Randy Guian, over there to the right. And he'll be asking the questions of the candidates. So this debate was put together very quickly because of the way this provincial election was set up, where you only had 30 days, the candidates only had 30 days to prepare and meet the people for this campaign. So we thought with the timing and the duration, we had to try and arrange something so it's fair for everybody to participate. And it gives you, the people, as well as the candidates, an opportunity to exchange your conversations. So as a result, the Ontario Landowners and Action for Canada agreed to provide this platform for a face-to-face exchange between the candidates and the people of the riding that they will represent. So to get this event going, I'm now going to introduce the candidates. So to my right here is Thomas O'Connor from the Renfrew Party. Next to Thomas is Murray Reid from the, sorry, I forgot your name, Central Federation. You can read the sign. I'm sorry, Murray. And beside Murray then is Kate McWilliams from the Now, we did invite all 7 candidates, and candidates NDP Kurt Stoll, and Green Party Anna Dolan, and Liberal Party Oliver Jacob did acknowledge that they were going to attend this event, but then they changed their plans or their minds at the very last minute. We did extend the invitation back to them again and say, if you plans change, please come. And this is a very important debate for the people, and we will make sure we have seats for you and hold the seat for you. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're coming. Mr. Yakubuski is the candidate, the current MPP for our riding for the Conservative Party, and he actually got 2 invitations but did not respond to us, so at that point we didn't know whether he was going to show or not, so clearly he did not show. So I apologize. I know a lot of people expected all of the candidates, but we did our best. But this gives you an opportunity to hear some other opinions from other parties, and hope you enjoy them. So we'll start with the format for this. First, we're going to ask that there only be questions and not statements, and that all comments be respectful. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves. They will then be given 2 minutes to answer each question that they are presented with. At the 1.5 minute mark, the flag will be raised at the back here, so they'll pay attention when they have 30 seconds remaining. And at the 2 minute mark, the bell will ring, which will tell you your time is up. So we'll start first with, we provided a box at the entrance there for those people that might be shy about asking a question, where we will pull out 5 questions, randomly pull out 5 questions, and give them to the moderator, and he will ask them. Ask each candidate to answer these questions. And like I said, they have 2 minutes to answer the questions. After that, we'll then go to 10 questions from the audience here. So if you have any questions, remember, we will have, we don't have an extra mic, but we have green crosses at each end here where this mic will go as far, and you you can ask your question. Or if you have a really loud voice and you think everybody will hear it, then you could do it that way too, but the mic would be better. One of our candidates has a little bit of trouble hearing, so the mic would be really helpful. Lastly, at the end of the 10 questions, the candidates will then have 3 minutes to give a closing statement. So if all goes well and we end promptly at 9 p.m., we're still going to keep the doors open until 9:30 to give you an opportunity for anybody that might want to ask another question or meet with the candidates before we shut the doors for the night. So with that now, we'll start this process. And I'll bring Randy up to, Eve has got these questions. Eve? Okay. Here's Randy.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Donna. So again, we're starting off with introductions, and just for fairness sake, what we're going to do is, of course, gentlemen, what we'll do is start with Thomas. He'll start it off, which means that Kate, in this case, would be last. And so the next question that we ask will start with you so that each person has a chance to start, be in the middle, and be at the end in fairness. So, Thomas, we'll ask you to start off with the introductions. Here we go.
Good evening, everyone. How are you tonight? Good. Just want to say thank you to everyone that was here, prepared, and set up this event. It's much appreciated for the FaceTime with you and with the candidates. I just hope that you just have a good night as well, okay? So my name is Thomas O'Connor. I'm a 35-year-old Christian man. Some of you here know me. I have been born and raised in the Renfrew area. I'm married to a wonderful wife. She's here with me tonight. I have three beautiful children that she's blessed me with. They'll be turning 11, 10, and 7 this year. I worked for a company called Zomax after graduating high school in the manufacturing industry, where I worked for that year and a half saving up for college, where I attended Algonquin College for 3 years, graduated from health sciences in the paramedic program, where I worked for 13 years as a paramedic and volunteered as a firefighter throughout that. While I was in college, I also I worked for Cobden Construction and assisted in many different organizations and volunteer groups. For 13 years, I worked in Ottawa. I resigned recently and have moved on to an electrical apprenticeship, where I currently am working now. I'm also doing, as you know, the New Blue campaigning as your candidate here in the Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke area. So the New Blue is a new conservative party that is here to represent conservative views, the views that we have been lacking for quite some time. We have 124 candidates that are throughout the entire province. The New Blue has got the ability to take all the seats if elected, and the candidates around the province have backgrounds as like doctors, nurses, paramedics, police officers, just average day-to-day individuals who are just tired of the current government situation. We all know what life is like. We all understand what everybody is going through on a day-to-day basis, and we just want to bring true, transparent government back to Toronto. The New Blue has some great policies. We plan to execute them. We are tired of the promises that our government has made for years and have not followed through with. So throughout the canvassing and the campaigning process, one of the things that was common amongst the community, and even with myself, is that people just want to be heard. People are tired of making phone calls or their voice just not heard and it doesn't resonate. We want somebody who is willing to hear what has to happen from the community and then action in that. And so the New Blue has a plan. We want that change. We want to see that change for you. We want to see these policies that we are basically promising you to happen. And we're going to make that happen. We're willing to do all the work. And as a paramedic for years, that was something that I planned to do, and I want to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Now, Murray.
Thank you very much to the Landowners Association for putting on this tonight. And isn't it great getting out again? Anyways, my name is Murray Reid. I'm with the Confederation of Regions Party of Ontario. I consider, number one, the price of fuel to be the first and main problem in Ontario right now, as in Canada. First, I know that in my own observations, climate change is fake news as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of people who are very quiet about it. I know our family alone, because of different circumstances, we have records back to 1947 of weather and circumstances that happen every day. And we know that it's just a cycle. It's a cycle that rotates, just like life, just like the months lead you. There's no crisis, so there's no need of carbon tax. The second, I was very dismayed at the legalization of marijuana. By Trudeau, he's downloaded the taxes onto the municipalities again. Now, by any of our news, you probably heard we had a grow-off bust in Renfrew, or outside in the township of Admaston, Rumble. Now, for the police investigation, they said there was 50 cop cars there. That means you have to have 50 drivers. That means that you would have to bill the township for the cost of the police investigation, and the taxpayers of that township have to pay for the extra costs in their taxes at the end of the year. We didn't have a say about this building that was being used, what it was used for. We can't go in there to investigate buildings until there's enough complaints, until there's enough suspicion. And every time you drive by, you can get your whiff of it. Anyways, we have to be careful in the Landowners Association of discovering any grow-ups happening on your land also. They can be booby-trapped. We might be endangering ourselves. I know one of our esteemed people in Renfrew discovered in his massive bush lots a big grow-up last fall. He bulldozed all the things together and burned them, but I've got to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Murray. We'll now hear from Kate.
Hello everyone, my name is Kate McWilliams, and I am excited to be your Ontario Party candidate in the upcoming election. Firstly, please allow me to thank the Ontario Landowners Association, as well as Action for Canada and my fellow candidates for coming together for this debate tonight. So who am I? I am from Petawawa, and I was born and raised here in the Valley. I graduated from Bishop Smith Catholic High School and am currently in my third year of university, studying biomedical and electrical engineering, where I maintain Dean's Honor List standing each semester. While a degree that is not directly tied into politics, engineering gives a mindset that I believe is very useful in the world of politics. In the words of my professor, Jack Vandenberg, the most important thing students learn in engineering is not math nor science, but rather it's the ability to solve complex problems. I have been actively involved in the local community in organizations such as Scouts Canada, where I achieved my Chief Scout Award, and the Pembroke Community Legion Band. I'm a proud Ontarian who loves freedom, and I want to ensure that all constituents have a voice for them at Queen's Park. I believe in fiscal responsibility in all levels of government, and that politicians should be held accountable for their actions. Unfortunately, accountability is something missing from politics today. The Doug Ford government has been completely unaccountable to Ontarians. We can see this clearly with many political experts saying that MPPs, Conservative MPPs, are strategically dodging debates. Is that what's happening here tonight? This shows that they do not care to be accountable to you. They feel as if they do not have to answer to you. The Doug Ford government has caused massive debts, $20 billion this year alone, shut down your businesses, ruined careers, and worst of all, have been actively conspiring with the Trudeau-Singh coalition government. The Ontario Party will be a government that works only for the people of Ontario. I will be a representative that works only for you and the people of this riding. I will not do as I'm told by lobbyists in Toronto or higher-ups in the government. Our party did not have any policy that addressed private property rights. So this shows that we like to get ideas from the grassroots. After talking with our leader, Derek Sloan, I drafted a policy, which then became the official platform for the Ontario Party and is our private property policy. We believe in ideas coming from the ground up, not the top down. The Ontario Party has a plan to bolster our healthcare system, create a quality education curriculum for Ontario classrooms, and bring high-paying jobs. Is that 3 minutes? Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm out of time. So I'll just end off and say I want to be a voice for all of you. Thank you very much.
Of course, the way that we have the format set up, all candidates, if you got caught in the middle of it, you may have a chance, of course, to be able to clean that up in the conclusion. Just a reminder to the candidates as well, great job in terms of the introductions. Really important that you hold the mic close to your mouth so that, are we having any difficulties with hearing, folks? Are we good? Thumbs up if everything's good. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. We're now going to move on to the second part of our format for this evening. And the first question, and I will leave the question here for you folks to be able to see it. First question that came up in the box was, what are 3 characteristics you possess? And I'll look at the candidates here. What are 3 characteristics you possess that will aid you in being a solid provincial representative for the people of Renfrew County? And because we started with Thomas with the introductions, Murray, that means you're first, and I'll leave this here for you. Murray.
One of the first main characteristics of a politician, which unfortunately I have, is that I'm very deaf. And if you'll notice that every politician, when you ask them a question, even in the House of Commons, they never give you the answer to the question. So that is just number one. I tell you, number one. The other ones, I'm a little older. I've been a lot of experience. I traveled a lot. I never really thought about this. What would make a real good characteristic? That's a very good question. You guys thinking on this? But the third one, yes, between being deaf and I know a lot of people. That's the thing. I've listened to lots of people. When I could hear, I was listening to them. That's about all, sorry.
Kate.
So I think the 3 characteristics that I possess that would make me a good representative for the people of Renfrew County is, first of all, I like to listen to people. I'm most concerned with what the people think in this county. That's something that we unfortunately do not see in Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, is our politicians, they don't seem to be interested in what we think in the county. So as your representative, I will make a priority to ensure that all voices, regardless of any political ideology, religion, creed, or anything like that, are heard and listened to. The second characteristic that I believe is extremely important for any politician is determination. I have what I like to think is fairly good determination, and I believe you need this down at Queen's Park. You're going to be up against a lot of people when we're debating bills or trying to get things done for the province. that are maybe not interested in their job or just voting against you just to spite you and your party. So determination is extremely important. I have demonstrated determination through my studies. In high school, I graduated with a 97 average. In university, I've maintained in engineering over an 80 average every year. So that takes some determination to achieve. The third characteristic that I think every politician should possess is the ability to speak to the people and the ability to convey ideas and convey what's going on in Toronto to the people. We have a large disconnect between what's going on in Toronto, the ideas being debated, and the people here. Most people are not aware of what's going on and what's being passed in Toronto. But I'll tell you something, they're very aware of you down there. So those are the three characteristics that I think every politician should possess, and I believe I have them. Thank you very much.
And the last person, of course, for this question, Thomas.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. All right, so throughout my career as a paramedic, I know I'm going to bash this one to death as a paramedic because that's been most of my life, right? Emergency services. So myself being an emergency service person, I've had the ability to develop some of these skills and assets to problem solve on the run. I have the ability to relate to you guys. I understand what you're going through. I can sit and listen and be able to get what you're going through, come up with the action plan, execute it, and lead through that problem. I think that having that trustworthy leadership is one of the best things that you can have as an MPP. You need somebody you can trust in, somebody that understands where you're standing and where you've been, and then have that hard work ethic to go with it. Somebody who's actually going to follow through and go through with that problem solving and get to the end, where most of us have been lacking with a lot of that throughout the last little while. So that's something that I've developed over the years, that work ethic, the ability to problem solve, and that leadership with the hard work going behind it. So, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our second question. And in prep for that, just to let everyone know that the order this time will be, of course, Cade, Thomas, and Murray in that order. So the second question that came up was, what specific plans does your party have to increase affordable housing? And that's including rental units in Renfrew County. And how would you work for that?
So it's no surprise to anyone that housing costs in Ontario, Canada, and of course Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke have become astronomical over the last few years. The first thing that I think needs to be done is we need to cut the red tape around building houses and fire the gatekeepers. Permits to build a single-family home in Ontario, this is before even breaking ground, range from $10,000 to $30,000. Depending on the municipality. So this is the first thing that the Ontario Party will tackle. We're going to get the price of building homes and the regulation around that down. The second thing that we are going to do is we are going to introduce sweeping urban legislation that will allow people with a single-family home to more easily convert their house to multi-unit dwellings. This will allow the homeowners to have a second source of income, help them pay on their mortgages or any bills that they have, and it will provide more housing units for Ontarians at a reasonable price. The next thing that we want to do is we want a foreign ban on all purchasing in Ontario. We want to ensure that Chinese national interests are not being spread here in Ontario through the purchase of our real estate. We want to ensure that primarily Ontarians get the right to enjoy land in Ontario. We would also like to strike a money laundering task force charged with rooting out corruption and instituting needed regulatory changes to real estate sales and purchases. And we'd also finally, we'd like to introduce legislation similar to Quebec's in style, where with new immigration, we can send people who are immigrating to Ontario to specific regions of the province that won't cause the prices of house to inflate in those areas. What we see is, I guess that's it. Thank you very much. 2 minutes.
Thomas.
So as we all know, through the last year, and especially in the last few months, housing has become astronomical. People can't afford it, they can't afford their rent, they can't even get mortgages for some of these because of our jobs and being able to have the right amount of pay to back it up from the banks. So a lot of that we're going to have to put some pressure on the federal government to gain control over some of the interest rates, also the banks loaning people inappropriate amounts of money that would then allow them to purchase some of these houses for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We would also need, make sure that these individuals who did pay for hundreds of thousands of dollars over the previous year, say last year the house might have been $250,000 and now your house is worth $800,000. That's my house. My house is not worth that. We need to put pressure on the banks, allow them to actually look into what the house is actually worth. We also need to allow for the housing market to have access to housing, as Kate had mentioned, allow proper building, have access to more houses at a more affordable rate, so we don't get into those bidding wars. We've seen people moving from areas of Toronto due to lockdowns and other aspects of life moving out this way because they want to purchase land because they're afraid of being there. So we need to prevent things like that from happening so that people don't sell their houses in Toronto for $2 million and outbid some of the local people who just clearly cannot afford that. We also need to make sure, like I had mentioned, that the individuals here are at work building these things, deal with the contractors with getting the right permits, deal with the local government so that they too know where they are for strategies to prevent this from happening. I fear that the young people, and even people like myself, may not be able to afford housing in the next little while. The New Blue recognizes that, we understand that, we want to deal with that, and we're going to. Thank you.
Murray.
Thank you very much. Now, being a realist, I know our party, though, in Northern Ontario, are trying to develop low-rental housing for Timmins, Kapuskasing, try to get the clean water in the reserves right through Moosonee. But things are different in different areas. But the main problem with all of Ontario, again, let's be realistic, it started last year, and that was the carbon tax again. The taxes have driven the prices of every building material up way too high that we cannot sustain, or we'd probably go bankrupt if we kept on building houses at the cost that it is right now. We know the price of a 2x4, it's just gone up so much. The price of my pumps in my business, I am very apprehensive of trying to sell a pump to somebody because you never know whether you might get paid back because they can't afford some of these pumps. They've almost doubled the price of jet pumps, submersibles, building materials. This is not the right time to expand our building. It has to be done more prudently, fiscally planned better, but it would all be simpler with the carbon tax right now.
Thank you, candidates. And the next question, please. What are the 3 top priorities? What are your top 3 priorities for Renfrew County? And of course, we'll be starting with Thomas.
So, top 3 priorities for me personally would be to thank you. to hear what you guys have to say. Obviously, we're here as a government or as candidates to hear what you have to say. We want to know what you need to do. So that's my priority. I want to restore the relationship between myself as potential government and you guys. The next priorities that I have in mind are our critical infrastructure. Roads are definitely not being maintained. We don't have the proper funding going to local representatives and local governments to fix those roads. Something that's near and dear to my heart is our healthcare system. Wait times are through the roof. You don't have doctors. When you do have doctors, you have 20 minutes to see them. Paramedic response times in this county are very long due to distance in which they have to travel. We need more of them in more frequent areas. We need to have access to that extended care. So things like nursing homes, retirement homes, we need better access to that. So we need the nursing staff, we need the physicians, we need to have the right people in the right place to make sure that you have somewhere to go. So those critical infrastructures, like I had mentioned, our road, expanding the hospitals, making sure that you guys have somewhere to go so that those wait times aren't there in the emerge. Often those wait times are because they have nowhere to put you. So you get seen in the emerge, you can't get put into this upper parts because they don't have the space. We need to make sure that the nursing staff's in there. Once you leave that, we don't have a place for you to go to as a nursing home or retirement home or physiotherapy. So we need to make sure that those infrastructures are there. I'm not bouncing you down the road, maybe in the future as a paramedic, I don't know. But I've done that where I'm bouncing you down inappropriate roads where your injuries and stuff are not taken care of. And then I think that we just need to have the relationship restored between us, okay? Thank you.
But are you aware, just want to make sure that you're aware that when that flag is raised, that means you have 30 seconds, right? You still have 30 seconds, is that correct? Okay, so I think you were cutting it short, but just remind you, there you go. You have an extra 30 seconds.
Top 3 priorities. Well, I would say developing of tourism. That would be one of the first things. That is one thing we do have to bring people in. People still don't want to travel. Yeah, I just got back from Cuba. But people want to travel locally. They may not have all their shots to go internationally. I think we can develop a lot more tourism. As far as the farms, we have to get the carbon tax down again. We can't put any of our crops in. We can't be fertilizing. We've got to get a lot of these laws that are put in Ontario by previous governments, by previous lobby groups. We've got to get them cancelled. The Species Act, let's see, the Species at Risk Act, the Clean Water Act, the Green Energy Act. We've got to get these things cut down. Also, I would like to encourage apprenticeships. I'm getting just about up there. I want to retire sometime. But I can't retire because some old guy comes to me and says, the one thing I want you to do is, you should retire soon, but you can't retire on me because I need you to put my cottage in and fix my pumps and stuff. So we don't have the apprentices that we need to keep on going and keep on building what we have. Thank you. King.
My top 3 priorities for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke are pretty simple. First priority would be increasing our infrastructure. The second priority would be getting the cost of living and making Renfrew County more affordable again. And my third priority would be to bring back accountability to politics. So we'll start with the first priority. Infrastructure. We've been promised a 4-lane highway through Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke for 40 years now. This is a little carrot that they dangle in front of us every election, and they never deliver on it. So that will be one of my first priorities to put through when elected as MPP. I'd also like to improve our cellular and internet services in the county to make us attractive to people who want to come in and bring their business to Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. Secondly, I'd like to get the cost of living down in Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. Right now we're seeing astronomical gas prices. Everything is going up. So first, the Ontario Party will eliminate PST on gas. That will save everybody 16 cents per litre each time you fill up. This is a temporary solution. We'd also like to advocate for an energy corridor between Alberta and Ontario to ensure that in Ontario we are only burning Canadian oil. We'd also like to set up a strategic oil reserve in Ontario, similar to what the United States has, to ensure that there are no shocks or price hikes in our oil and gas supply. This will help the affordability, and the cost of living will come down once we do that. Thirdly, I'd like to bring back accountability to politics. I'd like politicians to be accountable, and for our MPP to actually show up and face the music for the job that he's done over the last 20 years. We don't see this in politics today, and I'd like to bring that back. Thank you.
So that concludes the third question. We're now going to be asking Marie to come up here for the fourth question, and this one is quite specific, and it says, at present, PSWs in healthcare are employed part-time or casual and receive no benefits. Would you support a motion to have PSWs able to work full-time and receive benefits?
I would say I would support a motion. The problem being yes, please. Everybody wants to hear a yes. I tell you, I went to the hospital the other night for a tick bite. The waiting time was an hour. It was great. Of course, I went at 12 o'clock at night. In the daytime, it's quite a little bit more. But I could see that I didn't realize that the PSWs were in this position, though. But thank you. I passed this on. God.
This is a very good question, and one that I think illustrates politicians saying one thing, saying that they stand with healthcare workers, and then doing the exact opposite. We see many PSWs and nurses who are not employed full-time, or if they are employed full-time, their pay is regulated to ways that are completely unfair in Canada. If we compare the average nurse's salary in the United States with the average nurse's salary in Canada, the nurses in the States could be making $10,000 to $15,000 per year more. And we wonder why we have shortages here in Ontario. So we need to ensure that PSWs and nurses, which we desperately need in this province, which we are short on, are getting fairly compensated for their work and are getting benefits that make this job competitive with other jurisdictions. If we don't, we will have a shortage of nurses and PSWs. We'll see a brain drain, as it's been called before, where we see them fleeing to other jurisdictions, such as the United States and other provinces, where they are willing to fairly compensate them for their work. And the average Ontarian will suffer. We will see wait times go up, which we have seen in the last 30 years in the province. From 1993 in 1993, the average wait time at a hospital in Ontario to see a medical specialist was 9.3 weeks. In 2021, the average wait time is 25 weeks. This is the disaster that our politicians have created, and we need to ensure that our nurses, PSWs, and anybody else working in the healthcare system is fairly compensated for the work that they are doing, to ensure that people want to get into this line of work, and we have PSWs and nurses to take care of us. Thank you.
Thomas.
So PSWs, it's something that I've worked hand in hand with throughout my career. As a paramedic, sorry, got your hand signal there. So as a paramedic, I actually had firsthand knowledge that PSWs were being mistreated. And these individuals are working very hard, working for like 4 to maybe 8 hours in one spot, jumping from one place to another, to the point where during the pandemic, it became a concern where PSWs, RPNs, and nursing staff had to have multiple locations. We need to, as a government, treat them properly, give them the respect that they have. They're in there working extremely hard, to the point where they will see you in the morning, and 8 hours to 12 hours later, they come and find you on the floor. And it's because they are overworked, under-respected, underpaid, and they don't have the benefits to be able to support their family. So they go from one job to another job, and that to me is totally inappropriate. We had to put those policies in place to stop them from jumping around, and we still haven't given them the benefits and the proper pay. So now we've retracted some of their pay because of a pandemic response, where we didn't want them bringing one virus from one building and bringing it into another, causing an outbreak from one place to another. So our government has directly affected PSWs and other healthcare workers by isolating them to the one spot, but that place doesn't have the hours. So where do they go? Like Kate had mentioned, somewhere where they're going to be respected, to the US, to another province. These PSWs, RPNs, and staff that are working in our nursing home and retirement homes, they need to be respected. So absolutely, I think it needs to happen so that you can come in and give the care to the patients that I also was giving care to as well. Thank you.
Thank you again.
I turned it off. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry. So we're bang.
That's what bang. Thank you. So the last question, and this brings us to a close for this particular part of this particular debate. Last question reads: the pandemic has created a great deal of division and hurt in our communities. What is your plan to heal the past and prevent this hurt from reoccurring in the future? And we'll be starting with Kate.
So it's no question that the pandemic has divided society. We have segregation in our society, and it's now being legalized, and discrimination is something that is status quo now. The government has caused a large divide in our society and pitched people not only with pandemic-related restrictions, but on many different things against one another. We had a candidate who pulled out here tonight because of a wedge issue, dividing the population, saying that people here may not like certain segments of the population. These are things that we do not need in government. We need healing and unity in our government. We need to come together, again, as a people, and respect one another for our decisions and our differences. So my plan to heal the past and prevent this from occurring again, number one would be to end all COVID restrictions and any emergencies acts still in place in the Ontario government. Number two would be to ensure that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is upheld and respected here in Canada. Yeah. And number three is to introduce legislation to ensure that this never happens again in Ontario. I believe that if we all come together and reunite as Ontarians and community members, we have a very great future ahead of us, and this is my plan to reunite Ontario. Thank you.
Thomas.
I just say ditto? Because that was great. So obviously I have a very similar standpoint as Kate. Our community, our lockdowns, our government has caused great divide. We have a two-tiered society that has now been put in place. They've created fear amongst all of us, not wanting to be near one another. We have families that are going through turmoil based on something that they've chosen, something that they may have good reasons to or not to. And so one of the things that myself and the New Blue want to do is to, first of all, like Kate had said, end all COVID-19 mandates and prevent anything from ever happening again like that. We also need to reinstate or take away some of the things like the Reopening Ontario Act that shut us down and prevent us from being able to do that. And like I mentioned before, one of my priorities is just to be able to restore that relationship between you and I. Because we as a society have started to look and question a lot of the things that the government has done, because they're encouraging and not actually shutting down some things like the Toronto Star, where they've come out and made reference to us being unclean. That kind of mindset needs to stop. We need to teach children, teach our society to love and respect each other, regardless of our differences and choices. That is something that I want to see happen. We need to get along. We need these families to not be in such a big divide. And myself, I made a choice. I too have had family members and friends no longer communicate with me. And to me, I just think that that is completely inappropriate, and I will push to prevent these things from ever happening again, because we've all been affected from it dramatically in our lives. Thank you.
Murray. Healing. I just have to pass on my stories of how most of us have survived so far. We observe caution, we reserve personal responsibility, and reserved restraint. We had a lot of politics in the background in Toronto. We had the NDP on one side wanting us to lock it down so tight. We had the Liberals, anytime the NDP weren't on the Conservatives, to lock it down even more. The Conservatives were walking a fine line at that time. They asked me, why did I get my shots? I said I wanted to be a hero. Heroes can't travel. If you don't have your shots, I want to travel. I want to get out of the country, as most people probably wanted to do. They wanted to travel everywhere and be as much normal as possible. I may not have needed them. I stay down more septic tanks every week and play with people's toilets. I think I must be immune to just about every disease there is. Yeah. I'll tell you a story though about my grandfather, my great-grandfather. They were in Campbell's Bay during a year, and I asked my dad, my father said my great-grandfather's wife and 2 children died that year, and he had to bury them in the middle of winter. He dug underneath the wood pile at the bottom of the hill and buried them there. And I said, what year was that? He said, it was about 1918. That was the Spanish flu. My great-grandfather worked very hard. The wife and children didn't. The Spanish flu only took the healthy. It turned our immune system on itself. We don't know what the next flu is going to be, but we have to be cautious and careful. Thank you.
So let's have a round of applause for the candidates. And hand first 2 sections, introductions, and questions. Thank you so kindly for doing that. And so we now move to the third component of this debate, and that is basically an open forum for you, the community, to ask the questions. Now what I ask you to do is you'll notice just over to my left, there is an X on the floor. To my right, there is another X on the floor. If you have a question, I would ask that you make your way to one of those X's And at that particular point, what I will do is I will hand the microphone to you so you can ask the question. Reminder, very important that you talk into the mic so everybody can hear it, including the candidates. So who'd like to start it off, please?
Take it easy, Jack.
Shock, I don't need a microphone.
Hi guys, great job. Thanks for hosting Action for Canada and Ontario Landowners Association. This question is primarily for Cade and Thomas. It's not you guys. I know you guys personally, so you know this isn't a shot across the bow. But I am a lifelong conservative. Okay. And the last thing that I want is for an NDP or a Liberal government to be running Ontario, okay? Why have you, both of you guys have done a tremendous job tonight. You're both talented politicians, and I trust both of you. But, I mean, if we divide the vote, we have a chance that with your two parties being now in the mix on the right side of the equation, when I mean right side, I mean on the right of left, right of center, do you feel you're dividing the vote? Certainly from a perspective of a voter, I'm confused. I think you're dividing the vote. In this particular riding, I mean, our Conservative member won by 28,000 votes. So question number one is, do you think you're dividing the vote? Question number two is do you see an opportunity for you guys to unite and have not so many parties on the right-hand side? So that's kind of my question to you guys. It's not a shot across the bow. These are critical times. We can't have the Liberals or the NDP take over the province of Ontario.
So we'll start with Thomas.
So that question actually has come up an awful lot. So vote splitting, yes, it's a concern. So I'll answer obviously I just said, can I say ditto? Our views are very similar. I don't really personally understand what happened in the back rooms between John and Derek, or Jim and Derek, sorry. Would we like to get together? He and I have already spoken about that. I think that after all this is done, the two parties, I'll pull them in myself and say, look, we can't do this. But in regards to your vote splitting, even if we were to take the 30,000 votes, I think it was 33,000 in 2018 that John Yakubuski took, locally, we could split it three ways and be over the 7,000 that I believe that the NDP was next for, and then 3,000 or 4,000 that the Liberals had. To answer your question on a bigger scale, when it becomes the Liberals or the NDP getting in, yeah, in some of the other ridings, it's very close. To me, yes, there's a potential of handing that over to them, but here on a local level, even if right now with the Conservative government being polling quite high, even if one of us was to make it here and some of the other ones didn't, if we had a bunch of Conservatives and then a bunch of Ontario and a bunch of New Blue, and because Liberals have more than the next runner-up, and they form government, so they had 50 votes to our 40 Conservative, 10 and 10, and then so on down the road. The Ontario Party, the New Blue Party, I'm speaking kind of for him because I think I understand the mindset, we would get along with them and actually go and try and work with them, as long as it's right for you guys and it's what you want. I don't necessarily think that it's inappropriate to vote for something that the opposing party puts forward, as long as that is done in good faith on your behalf, right? And just because they sit as a government and form government doesn't mean we can't control the parliament, right? So I don't think there's any fear here locally, and even at that other level, I think it's still capable that and appropriate that you vote for somebody that you know is going to represent you the best, okay?
Murray? Murray? Okay.
Okay, I think you kind of directed it.
So as for the splitting the Conservative vote, I'm just going to start off with a question for everybody here. Are you happy with the way things are going in Ontario?
No.
So don't vote the same way you voted because you're unhappy, or you're unhappy with the way things have gone in Ontario. If you go and vote for the Conservative member, what you are saying is everything that you guys have done over the last 2 years, I completely agree with and keep doing it. And we see what that's gotten us. It's gotten us an empty chair over there. So you need to vote for somebody who's actually going to represent you and somebody whose values you align with. I believe that the Ontario Party has real Conservative values that will align with this county. And what a better spot to send a message to the Conservative Party than Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke and elect somebody other than a Conservative. This is a Conservative stronghold. It would send a message that they need to smarten up or get out of the way. As for splitting the vote between New Blue and I had spoken with Thomas, as he said. We are more than happy to work together whenever possible. I know that our leader, Derek Sloan, has said the same thing on numerous public occasions. He says, whenever possible, we love to work with other people and we'd love to work together. Unfortunately, we're coming a bit close to the election here to work together right now, but hopefully after June 2nd, we'll be able to come together and work together to ensure that there is a good Conservative voice for you guys in Ontario. So if you don't like the way things are going, I ask that you please do not vote for the people that dug us and put us in this hole. Vote for somebody who can actually get us out. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're ready for another question. I have one here, and then you, sir, immediately after that, please feel free to come up.
Good evening, Don. I just want to ask, we've had some pretty poor representation in our riding, and where I'm coming from is years ago, 99.9% of Renfrew County was against gun control. But because our representative was in the Prime Minister's back pocket, he voted with the government. And I'm just wondering if you have the backbone, if Renfrew County is for something, and we want you to, our people want something, a certain item, and if it comes to voting with your party, are you willing to vote for your people and not follow the party platform? Because we have a member right now that has been missing for a long time, and he hasn't got the backbone to stand up to the people that are there. Would you have the backbone to stand up for us?
So let's start with Murray. Murray had a hard time hearing.
We have the backbone to stand up against whatever. Will we stand up for the people? Or will we follow the party?
I think that's well said, Thomas. Will we stand for the people? Should the party line be in conflict with what the people want? So will you go with the people? Will you follow the party line? Is that, sir, does that represent? Okay.
No, I think the original foundation of the core party was that, and it's probably along what you've adopted yourself, is that we vote according to our conscience, we vote according to our writing. The other thing was we did have recall. We wanted recall in our province of Ontario to get rid of certain people that really weren't doing their job. We're very financially prudent. We were the spin-off of the separatist, you could say, the separatist Western Party that wanted to, the Confederation Regions Federal Party and the former, we wanted the Senate to be, I've lost it all here, sorry folks. It's a question we would think the way that people want to think. That's normal. We aren't run by any corporations or we like to be down-to-earth people that we can associate, we talk to, we get everybody's ideas. What would we call populist? It was just like Ronald Reagan back in, when he was elected, his security detail couldn't keep track of him a lot of times. He'd race off and he'd sit on a park bench and he'd say, what do you think of our policies here? Do you think it's going to be good for the people? And he'd get his answer, and the security detail was looking for him everywhere. I think that we got to get back to this populist policies and not be following our party line.
That's a great question that was asked. So in the Ontario Party, we do not believe in towing the party line. The Ontario Party does not and will not have party whips. Our representative was a party whip down in Toronto, and for anybody who may not know what a party whip is, they go around and strong-arm MPPs to vote a specific way on a bill, even if it goes against what the people want. It's what the party wants. That's what they're enforcing. So we do not have that, and we do not believe in that. Each MPP in our party and each member of our party is expected to vote for the people. And that's how it should be. It should be ideas from the people, and we should be working for the people, not for lobbyists or other interest groups in Toronto. Secondly, we're going to introduce recall legislation. This will ensure that if an MPP is not voting for the people, we can get them out of there. Or if an MPP goes missing for 2 years and we don't see them, we can recall them and remind them who they work for. And at the end of the day, all MPPs work for the people of this riding. So they should only represent the interests and the opinions of people of this riding, not the interests of their parties down in Toronto. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So as you were saying, obviously the MP level, the federal level with the gun issue, that's a federally regulated thing. Myself, I'm a gun nut, so if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't have voted in his favor. But in the New Blue, on an MPP on a provincial level, similar to what Kate had said, we don't have those party whips. We are to listen to the people. We're to get into the community and understand what you actually need, and then to take that down to Toronto and push forward what it is that you want. We've got to stop having this top-down where the government and the party decides things for us and then tells you what to do. You have valuable items at home that you spent lots of money on that the government's trying to take control of. They're trying to do with our kids, our land, and everything else that we have, even our own bodies at this point. I myself, would I stand up for you? Absolutely. I quit my job as a paramedic because the government was trying to do something to you that I did not agree with. Then for the last year, I've been speaking out about some of these things that the government's trying to hide and do to you and to every person in this building. I will absolutely stand up for you. And if I had the other side, actually it says there, the New Blue, right across the bottom, it's in their motto, we will stand up for you. We will not allow the MPPs to run with the lobbyist mindset because they are people that are looking for money. They want us to go with them. You're the consumer, you should be telling that business what to do. And I should definitely not be listening to the business because I work for you and I have for the last 13 years and I plan to continue doing that regardless of what anybody has to say. I will stand up for you and so will the New Blue.
So we have a question over on this side. Thank you, gentlemen. We have a question over here.
So I think like a lot of people, I've never been as concerned and terrified for the future of this province and this country as I've been in the last few months. I've seen some of the laws that have been passed in Ontario lately, namely an education reform bill. I can't remember the exact number or name of it, but it essentially codifies at every level of school from kindergarten all the way through university, boards that can judge people and fine people financially based on their unconscious biases, based on unproven theories. Bill 100 was recently passed in Ontario, which essentially makes emergency measures permanent, strips Ontarians of their rights to due process, allows a police officer to determine whether you are protesting on critical infrastructure, what that infrastructure is, and to take your property away without any hearing, without any due process. And, you know, I didn't think when I got out of the armed forces in 2013 that within a decade we'd be living George Orwell, and we are, and it's terrifying. What will you do to stop that from happening in Ontario, and what will you do to repeal Orwellian measures that have already been taken in Ontario? Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but maybe I have a question for you. Are you thinking about municipal elections? So we'll start off with Kate.
So that is a very good question, and a very good statement before the question as well. It's very concerning what we see being pushed through in Ontario, namely Bill 100, and Bill 67 was the critical race bill. I do have some good news. That bill died. It is not taken. But we have to ensure that they cannot get that bill back on the table when legislators start sitting again. So if elected, I will ensure that my vote does not go in favor of a bill like that. With Bill 100, this is a very terrifying bill. As the gentleman has said, it removes the presumption of innocence, which our law and justice system were founded upon. Innocent until proven guilty. Now you are guilty until proven innocent. If you are deemed a political enemy of the state, they can seize your bank accounts, as we saw in the trucker protest. They can seize your property. They can just generally harass you and make life terrible for you here in Ontario. That is something that we will never stand for as the Ontario Party. Day one, we will work to repeal Bill 100 and ensure that all Ontarians have the freedom to protest and the freedom to make sure that their voices are heard in this province. We would also like to ensure that something like this can never happen again. We want to ensure that bills, dangerous bills, such as Bill 67, which is an anti-racism bill, hidden language that most people don't understand, which pitches groups against one another and gets us back to race tensions, which we do not need in the province. We need to make sure that these bills never come back to Ontario. So the Ontario Party will work to ensure that Bill 100 is gone on day one and Bill 67 does not come back. We will keep them out of our Ontario legislature. Thank you.
It's a great question. Obviously, it's a big concern with the last couple of years, really. A lot of people are out protesting. Bill 100, absolutely, it needs to go. The New Blue has every intention of removing all of those bills and acts that they have put in place. The Reopening Act, like you said, that Bill 100 where it takes away everybody's property, they get to deem what critical infrastructure is. It's totally inappropriate because it could be your front lawn and then they'll take that from you, right? And so that's not okay. We can't have an authoritarian government in place. Those bills need to be removed. When it comes to critical race theory and gender identity theory and all these other bills that based on theory that the left has pushed into our teachings to children, those things need to be removed. We can't have parents losing their rights over their children. We can't allow them to be charging us and going after us based on something that we feel as maybe you're Christian or Muslim, whatever these faith-based things. They then think that your thoughts are totally inappropriate and they come after you. CAS is in your home, the OPP, or maybe your local municipal police in some of these areas. They're knocking on your door, they're seizing your house, they're taking your children, and you don't have anything to combat with them. because you were either protesting or you taught your child some of your faith-based things that you feel near and dear to your morals, right? It's totally inappropriate. The new boo has every intention to going in and removing a pile of things. There won't be too many bills passed other than we need the right to our freedom, and we need the right to have all of these things like our Charter of Right and the Bill of Rights followed. None of these things need to be put in place where they're violating those things. It has to stop. Thank you.
So we're ready for another question. Sorry, another question over here. Yeah. So if you want to actually you can stay put there until we're finished, so you don't have to stand there for any length of time. So
I don't know if this is kind of a question, but I want to know why is it you guys are working for the people, why is it we don't vote for the bills? We're not part of that cycle. I mean, you guys are supposed to be working for us. This is the same old. I don't want you guys voting for the bill. Why is it we can't vote for the bill? And Trudeau wouldn't be putting all these bills through if we had anything to say. And I didn't vote for years because of that. Because, like you said, the old system has to go. Even you guys have to change the way things are done. You know, we want to vote for a bill. Would Bill 233 even be on the table? Probably not. A question? Okay, is it possible that we the people could vote for bills or be part of that cycle or be active in some way that the government can't do whatever they want? And I think I see Trudeau over here. Yeah, he's in jail, that's where he belongs.
I think we laughed there, didn't we? That was a thing of the past for a while. So if I can paraphrase again, I guess if we're looking at the bills, right now, as we've noticed, please help me out if my interpretation is correct. The bills have been passed down without any debate, without any kind of discussion, without any public forum for community to discuss. Would I be safe to say, what will it look like if you are in office? What would you change? Does that suffice? Okay. So we'll start with Thomas. You win, Thomas.
Yeah. So I too have actually asked that same question. Why is it that when we live in the 21st century, are we still doing some of the same things over and over and over again? But unfortunately, the way the laws are written right now, we're based on a very old parliamentary thing that goes back for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? But at the same time, what I have also thought of as a local representative, something I can do for you, is set something up where you have the ability to log in. I can actually make sure you are you, have a two-way authentic, I'm telling you anyway. You get what I'm saying? I can actually confirm you are you. And poll the community. I can know what you have to say in regards to that bill so that I know that you don't agree with it. The other way too, though, is that there could be a lot of the other people's mindsets also pushed into that I'm not saying we should disregard them, but they could go the opposite direction that maybe you want as well. But I need to know what every single person in the room would like so that I can make an educated and an appropriate decision based on all of the knowledge, right? I'm not a farmer. I'm not a bunch of different things. So I don't know what it is that individuals need. So I need to go out and at least sit down with you guys to understand what it is at the the bare minimum. We have not seen that with our local representation for a very, very long time. There is technology out there that I can utilize to obtain your information, your view on that bill that may be tabled so that your voice is actually heard. And that's something that I had mulled around with different groups and thought it would be good to get their feedback on. So that's something that I want to do, is have the ability to get direct information so that a poll similar to what some of these other newscast medias like CTV and that do, we can see where the people stand in this county based on that, and then I can go to them and figure out why is it that you don't want that, or why is it that you do want that, so that I can make an appropriate decision based on the people in their population. Okay, thank you.
And Mary has abstained, so Kate.
That is a great question. We have representation here in our riding and across the province and across the country for that matter, that does not represent us and our beliefs. That is a big problem in Ontario. So similar to what was said, I would like to introduce a polling system as well to poll the residents of Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, and see how the people are feeling and give the people a chance to have some input into these bills. A lot of times these bills are passed very quietly down in Toronto. We don't even hear about them, whether it's passing them at midnight and nobody hears about it, or they just don't tell us. So something else that I would like to implement is monthly town hall meetings. I would like to, as your MPP, have a town hall meeting where people can come in, ask me questions, tell me how they're feeling, and that ensures that I will be accountable to the people. We have the technology to make this happen, that you could connect anywhere from around the riding, so I don't understand why that is not happening. We need accountability and transparency in our processes in Toronto. That is not happening right now. So number one would be polling. Number two would be town hall meetings. I would also like to be a more active MPP within the community. We have seen our representation disappear over the last few years. They have not been active. They're not out in the community gauging how people feel on certain issues. So I want representation that is active in the community. And finally, I would like a representation that actually votes for the people. I was out in Killaloe and talked with Father Shala out there. He had put a petition forth to John Yakubuski. John Yakubuski goes down to Toronto and presents the petition, says that he knows it's morally wrong. It was on euthanasia, I believe, and he votes in favor of the bill anyways. So I want representation that actually represents the people. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a member and director of the Green Burial Ottawa Valley Co-op, and which has over about 160 members here in the Ottawa Valley. And my question to you is, I don't know if everybody knows that burial is regulated by the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, which is a little step down from the government. And in January this year, they raised the fees for opening a new cemetery from $100,000 to $165,000. And also, they have the highest fees in Canada, in Ontario, of 40% per grave that has to go towards care and maintenance, which is basically raising the price of graves for everybody. And then, for example, in BC, it's 0 fee and 25%. In Alberta, it's 13. You can poll across the country. We have the highest fees in Ontario. Why? So my question to you is, will you support the elimination of these prohibitive, anti-business, anti-competitive, and basically penalizing seniors and people wanting to be buried in an environmentally responsible way, in the way that our grandparents were buried for thousands of years before the funeral industry went with ways that turned cemeteries into toxic waste sites? So will you support the elimination of these fees?
We'll just give Murray a few seconds here because he's up next. Just to decide whether he's going to respond to that now that he's getting some clarification. Murray, are you willing to stick to this? Okay. So it'll be Kate.
Oh, that was a very intriguing question, one that I was not aware. I don't have much knowledge in this field, I have to admit. But I 100% support the removal of fees and regulations around business and around the cemeteries, as you have mentioned, and other areas of business as well. Unfortunately, in Ontario, we have a bureaucracy overload. We have way too much bureaucracy, and that results in high fees and high costs to the people of Ontario. So we need to get rid of these fees and these costs to get the costs down. We also need to open Ontario up for business. Doug Ford ran on that in 2018, and Ontario is more closed now than ever. So we need to ensure that we get the costs down to do business, and I would 100% support removing any fees associated with the burial services, as you have mentioned. I also see this as a bit of an attack on freedom of religion. They're almost pricing people out of following their religious beliefs on how they should be prepared for whatever they believe comes next. So I see this as the government trying to limit our religious freedom, which is something that we've seen quite rampantly throughout the last 2 years. So I'd like to see business regulation and the cost of doing business in Ontario to come down, and B, I want to ensure that charter protected rights such as the freedom of religion are protected here in Ontario, and people are able to pursue their religions as they see fit. Thank you.
Let Murray know we've got some clarification.
I just have a few things to say now. I have a cemetery in my backyard. I donated. I didn't know whether I was going to live about 7 years ago. So I made sure to donate at a very low cost, half an acre of the cemetery that we can use for burying people. Otherwise they could never bury people there again, possibly. We ran into legislation that was a problem, that they said if your cemetery is 500 feet from a beef farm, you can't have a cemetery there. You can't expand your cemetery. It has to be something like 1,500 feet from a dairy farm, a working dairy farm. So the expansion, it's kept us that we can never expand our cemeteries. So the costs there, they were how we're going to do it. One of the gentlemen on the board said, let's classify that half an acre as a parking lot. And we ended up selling it, and it's now part of the Admasson Township parking lot, which we hope in the future can be transferred as a cemetery later. You got to try and outthink these people in Toronto, you know. That's all I'd like to add on that. I'm not familiar exactly with Bill 100, but...
So when it comes to death, I have experienced a lot of it as a paramedic, but unfortunately it stops at either the hospital or your bedroom, right? So when it comes to burial costs and cemetery expansion and those things, I think it's totally inappropriate that the government, once again, after you're dead or you're dying, to be targeting you. The cost of all these things, they're taxing you constantly. It's just one more thing, even though when you're dead or dying, that you have to worry about. And some of these rates just keep going up and up and up. The New Blue wants to get rid of things like carbon tax. When you're dealing with a business like that, get rid of some of these taxes that are in there and the burdens of so-called red tape surrounding everything. Because we realize that a lot of the stuff that's been occurring in Toronto, they have no understanding of what happens elsewhere. They're not exposed to these things. They don't realize it. Myself as a paramedic, for years, people didn't realize that we had death rates the height that we did, and still do, right? So I think it's appropriate that we get rid of the cost associated with those things. It should be included in part of our healthcare. You pay taxes your entire life, and then they go and restrict where you can put somebody. And when it comes to environmentally friendly ways, I'm not opposed to that. By all means, people died for years and years and years without any massive technology being put into the ground to bury them. So I think that it's appropriate that we lessen these burdens. We have a policy that's in place for all businesses, regardless of whether you're dealing with death or the living. We need to get rid of the burdens. We need to make it okay for you to make a living off of it. And a lot of that has to come down with the government's overreach on every aspect of our lives. So thank you.
So yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, candidates. I've really enjoyed listening to you this evening. I'm old enough that I remember some of the good things from the 50s and 60s. And two of the things I really liked from way back then, before the mid-70s hit us and brought out sea change, are the fact that bills were not omnibus bills. I've heard a lot of talk tonight about this bill and that bill, but most bills actually contain multiple bills. They're hundreds of pages long. They're thousands of pages long. They contain laws that aren't even connected to each other. When I was a girl, if there was a bill, it might have 11 laws in it, but they all had to do with farming or something of the sort. Now they put everything together in a basket. So my question is, are you personally, and is your party, concerned about just lumping together an omnibus bills? And if you care, there's one other thing. When I was a girl also, the mega-rich paid about the same percentage of taxes as teachers, nurses, etc. Now they can get away paying less than 10%. Are you at all concerned about the fact that the mega-rich pay less percentage than the average teacher?
So that's a double loaded. So we're talking about the omnibus bills, which means loaded bills, multiple bills, and of course the looking at some kind of a focus on equanimity when it comes to taxes. Mary, did you hear that? Thomas, you're helping him out again. Thank you so kindly for doing that. And so, Kate, actually you're up, so this is perfect. Thomas will be able to explain to Murray, or be able to write that down for him, so he can see it, and I'll let you go.
I'll answer the first part of the question first, and then move to the second question. So as for bills being passed, which are almost difficult for the average person to understand, you almost need a lawyer to explain these bills to you, and even they don't really understand what's in it. I believe that this may have been done somewhat on purpose. There was a Greek philosopher who once said that the law is supposed to be written in a way that the average man can understand it, not on a pole so high that the average person cannot read it. So that this applies very directly to this question. We need laws in Ontario that the average people can sit down, comprehend, and form an opinion on. This is how they push things through, is they make it way too complex for the average person to even take the time to read the bill, let alone break down what it actually means. So we absolutely need to get back to simplifying our legislation so that the average person can understand what is being imposed on them at a provincial level. I'm going to go to the second part of the question now, which goes to more income tax brackets. I believe that we should have a fair income tax system. People who do not have access to accountants to help them figure out how to hide things offshore or hide assets, stuff like this, the average person does not have access to these resources. So we need to ensure that the income tax system and our taxation system is equal for all. And this also goes beyond taxes, ensuring that small businesses can stay open. We saw it during the lockdown. Small businesses had to close, but it was okay for Walmart and Costco to keep going. Let's keep in mind that the politicians of today, they want to take from the have-nots and give to the have-yots. So we are going to work against this, and we're going to work for the people of Ontario. Thank you very much.
Thomas.
So once again, what he said, but again, we in the New Blue totally understand that government has been constantly hiding all kinds of things into these bills and making it so long that most of us don't even read them. Some of you may not have even known that they passed bills that have actually gone through in the middle of the night or early mornings or on a weekend, whenever they decide. And so one of the things that we want to make sure of, and especially me, is that that bill is very simple. This is what we're going to do. This is the effect it's going to have. And if it doesn't, this is what we're going to do to remove it. So we need to have those things in place so that the average person can understand it. We have a generation that may not necessarily have a university degree, and then we have a generation that's all they have. And they're in debt, and they can read these things and they don't have jobs, and they sit there and look at all these things that the government has done. So we need to make sure that the most appropriate thing is that these people have the ability to read it, understand it, and decide whether they agree with it or not. When it comes to the second question, which is the tax base, I think it's completely inappropriate that I pay more taxes than somebody that might be a billionaire or a millionaire. It is completely wrong. The people in here look to be just the average individual, no different than you or myself, but the New Blue also has individuals that are the same. We're just average people that understand exactly what your questions have been tonight. We know what you are going through from a business perspective or a personal perspective. We want to make the right changes in a very common sense approach to it. And we don't want any confusion, and we don't want anybody to be treated differently. Like he mentioned, Walmart was open, Costco was open, mom and pop shops were shut down. Totally not okay. And they're doing that in all aspects of our lives, whether taxes or it be healthcare, it doesn't matter. We need to stop all of these differences amongst each other, okay?
Politics. There's fair stuff and there's unfair stuff. There's dirty politics. The omnibus bills. That's all the bills altogether. I would say they sneak through some nasty stuff in there sometimes that we don't have a clue about, and most of us don't have a clue about it. It's good to get together and having meetings like this regularly so that we inform each other. Hey, did you hear about this one? Did you hear about that one? A lot of these bills that I've not heard of exactly. The bureaucrats like to expand. I know I'm dealing with, Elections Ontario. And bureaucracies in Election Ontario keep on getting bigger and bigger. And that is the one reason that the only foundation for any organization is to expand. So if we have a union, the only reason they're there is to expand. They aren't there to serve their workers or anything. The way that they serve their workers, they get to expand. They get more members. They get more income. Now, elite take care of themselves. We can say that the money that we want to tax these people, they're just going to move it to another country. They're going to move it to different ways around. They can get around it. They made these bills. The elite made the bills. Now, one of the elite deals is that they can move it to another country, or they can hide it. But the one thing we have to remember is that a conspiracy, don't think bad about conspiracy, a conspiracy is a good business plan. Anybody who creates a conspiracy can create a lot of money for themselves. Any business you can see that.
Thank you. Further questions? This gentleman, and then you, sir.
Good evening, panel. Kate, I know I've answered this question to you before, so I'm putting it through to all three of you. Actually, it's going to be two questions if I can. Number one.
Just because of time, can we limit it to one, please?
One? Okay. I'm a grandparent of 26 grandkids, plus a couple of great grandkids. The way the school system is going right now, I'm very worried. The transgender and all the all this stuff that's going on in the schools now, it's being taught. Perfectly okay or something along that line that kids have been given, where it shows pictures of well, sorry to put it this way, people having sex. This is going into schools right now, starting in kindergarten, which is completely unacceptable. Gentlemen, what do you feel about it, and what are you going to do about getting rid of that?
So the sexual education plan that Kathleen Wynne put in prior, a lot of people didn't like it. You're bringing up some of that. Doug Ford ran and said that he was going to abolish it, get rid of it, and not have it. He snuck it in. It's inside the gender identity theory, a bill that was passed. Again, removing the rights of parents to know what their children are being educated on, things that the school can now hand over medication from a doctor that they have on staff or wherever that can stop your child from entering into puberty. Massive problem. Why? Because that's a huge, huge change for an individual to make under the age of, say, 10, 12, 5 years old, because they had one question: am I a boy or a girl? Simple question. Yes or no, right? So it should be, you have an XX, XY chromosome. Which one are you? That's the answer. Simple as that. I feel that it is completely inappropriate that we put these things on our children at such a young age. We're handing them information that they don't have the ability to abstract think. They haven't hit that sexual maturity level. Do I think that children suffer and have some problems that they question things as they get older and have mental health crises based on a question that they just struggle with? Absolutely. Is it something that's happening in our society? Yes. Could it be because we're teaching them at a very, very young age and exposing them to all these materials on TV, at school, all these things? I think so. But I've had that kid in the back of my ambulance who is suicidal because the kids at school made fun of him. Why? Because the teacher stood up and said to them, here's what you need to know. Here's what your sexual preference is. Here's all these things. They had an internal battle that they were struggling with, and now they're self-harming. And where do I come in? 911. That's where I've been in. I understand that these kids go through that. But we can't have the parents being pulled away, not being involved in these decisions, and then have the kids struggle on their own and not know it. That needs to change, and we're going to do that.
Murray. Again, one of my questions that was asked of me, what are the three things that are concerning me in this election? I told them on the news that it's the continuing sex education curriculum, and it grooms kids into subjective ideas that are not healthy for mind and body. Now, this came about in one of the schools in Renfrew where the 3-year-old at Christmas points to his dad, his grandfather, at Christmas dinner while they're having a mouthful of, and he says, those are, look at Grandpa has penises on his chest. Well, everybody just about spit out their turkey. He said, where did you learn this? He said, we learned it at school. They have anatomically correct dolls in the school that are named. Well, the kid just gets them confused a little bit with their names. And so they had a meeting at the school with all the concerned women who were very concerned about this. And John Yakubuski went to see the meeting also that night. And finally, nothing was really resolved with the teachers that were there, because this is in the curriculum. And so she took them to the Catholic school, which didn't have that curriculum. They weren't teaching the curriculum. And there they've been ever since they've now graduated. But it is a problem. I think that we should cancel or change the secular curriculum that is being taught in the schools today.
So the question of sex education in Ontario schools is one that is very near and dear to the Ontario Party. We have a platform that I believe really addresses this problem. We have been endorsed by Parents as First Educators, which is an organization that promotes parental input into children's education curriculum. I'd like to just start here by reading a preamble that was in the math curriculum up until July of 2021, so very recent. Mathematics has been used to normalize racism and the marginalization of non-Eurocentric mathematical knowledges, and a decolonial, anti-racist approach to mathematic education makes visible historical roots and social constructions. I have no idea what that means, but nothing to do with math, I can tell you that much. And then I'm going to give you a stat here now. 49% of grade 6 students were at or above the provincial standard in math in 2017-2018. So we should be focusing on teaching them actual math, science, a language, skills that students are going to need to succeed in the workforce, not this other stuff that has no place in a classroom. The Ontario Party will ensure that it becomes illegal for teachers to bring subjective views, both political and cultural subjective views, into the classroom. We will ensure that teachers do not tell students that there is no such thing as men and women. We will ensure that teachers do not promote that Canada is an inherently racist or fundamentally irredeemable country. And we will promote an actual education curriculum that benefits Ontario students and prepares them for life ahead. Thank you.
Now, given the time, and we've been very sensitive and paying close attention to the time, we do actually have time for one more question, but timer is what we have to do, and so your question will certainly ride, but because of the time, we'd have to decrease it. It would be a shot for 1 minute, and so what we would do is at 30 seconds, flag up to know that you have another 30 seconds, okay? Just so that we respect the time. So, sir, now is the time for your question.
One thing you gentlemen have said a lot this evening is talking about making Ontario competitive once more, because people are leaving this province because of high tax rates and just an extremely exorbitant cost of living. You've talked about maybe cutting the carbon tax, but I even recall before that the economic strain that the average blue-collar worker has in paying their bills and providing for their families. So what measures are your parties willing to take to make sure that we have the money to spend that we want? So the government is not taking any more money from us, because I'm tired of paying for bad policies.
So again, reminder to candidates, 1 minute, and so at 30 seconds, they will wave the flag for you. 1 minute.
I think the taxes that will keep on going up and up and up, they're unsustainable. We cannot keep on taxing and taxing and taxing. And it's like the price of houses. We keep on putting, hey, let's put an addition onto our house and we can sell it for more. No, you cut down the amount of people who can buy it. You're cutting down the amount of people who can pay your taxes by keeping on putting them up. We have to be sustainable by being frugal, by watching our costs when we're purchasing stuff, and the government has to watch their taxes too. They're frivolously throwing it away at everything, and it's frustrating for everybody, even myself.
Thank you. Kate, 1 minute.
So affordability and the cost of living rising is something that I take a keen interest to. It's something that everybody here feels. I'm sure everybody feels it when they go to the pump, paying $2 a liter. I'm going to tell you though, the taxes in this province are ridiculous, and the way that our money is spent is even more ridiculous. So many of you may not be aware, 51.3 cents per liter of our gasoline is taxed. That's 25% of the cost of gasoline in Ontario is taxed. So we need to ensure that we're getting taxes down, that we have a government that is not running $20 billion deficits that's going to cause taxes to go up in the future. We need a financially responsible government, and one that is responsible to the people and will actually help affordability and making Ontario an affordable place to live again. Thank you.
And to finish off tonight in terms of questions, Thomas. 1 minute.
So I know we've mentioned taxes, decreasing them, all those things, whether it be carbon tax, HST, all that. The New Blue has 124 candidates that have expertise inside their fields. They understand where inappropriate funds are going, where it needs to stop, where to redirect them. Myself as a paramedic, I know that the City of Ottawa spends millions of dollars in gas driving around the city needlessly based on a deployment plan that the Minister of Health approved. Things that we need to stop. We have clauses in there that say spend your budget or you're going to lose your budget. We don't carry money over into one place into the other for the next budget. We need to stop putting bills forward, wasting our time, and then the next government comes in and removes it all. We need a common sense approach. We need the expertise to know where the money's going so that we can stop using it inappropriately. And the New Blue has a plan for that. Thank you.
Sorry. Let's have a round of applause for the candidates for meeting the challenge and doing so articulately. Thank you so kindly. So this brings us to you folks have been absolutely fantastic as well. The questions. This is exactly why OLA, under the direction of Donna and her team, incredible OLA team, have created a public forum like this to have questions asked and to get answers. So round of applause to OLA as well for making this happen. So this brings us to the closing statements. And so in this case, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. And Kate, you get to start it off.
In closing, please allow me to thank the OLA, A4C, my fellow candidates, and all of you in attendance. It's been a great night. We've had some great debate and some great conversation. Seeing this many people interested in our democracy and the future of our province and country reminds me of a quote: democracy is not a spectator sport. I think that quote has become extremely relevant in today's political landscape. It is my goal to bring back accountability to Queen's Park, to be a representative who doesn't just promise the world but actually follows through, and to be a strong voice for all in Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. I will be a strong voice for everyone, regardless of religion, creed, or political ideology. I will ensure that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is upheld and we protect individuality in Ontario. The Ontario Party will work to keep government out of your private business. For any of you who are concerned with the path that Ontario is taking, I ask you to consider voting for a party that did not put us in these situations. Voting for parties which have not done an adequate job only guarantees that past bad behavior continues. As I have previously said, the Ontario Party will improve our healthcare system, create a quality education curriculum, and fix the problems that the mainstream legacy parties have created here in Ontario. The Ontario Party is made up of average Ontarians, not career politicians. We have been endorsed by various groups such as Campaign Life Coalition, Parents as First Educators. We've also been endorsed by individuals such as Dr. Byron Bridle, who spearheaded the fight for truth and transparency in the scientific community, as well as Dr. Ira Bernstein. I would also like to extend an invitation to all here tonight to a meet and greet that I'm having tomorrow night from 7 till 9 p.m. at the Sands on Golden Lake. There'll be refreshments and a chance to ask any more questions if you think of questions that you may have. To end off, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Canadian Prime Minister Sir Wilfrid Laurier. "Canada is free, and freedom is its nationality. The Ontario Party and I will work to make Ontario and Canada the freest place on earth once more. The Ontario Party's 3 pillars are freedom, faith, and family." If these 3 pillars align with you, I ask that you put your faith and trust in me and cast your vote for the Ontario Party on June 2nd. Thank you all very much.
Thomas.
I want to thank everyone tonight for coming out and everyone that was involved in getting tonight's event set up. I know that it was last minute, and I truly appreciate the hard work and efforts you have put into tonight. So we've heard everybody with all their questions, concerns, a lot of things that we haven't been able to actually bring forward to our MPPs in the past, especially here locally. I've struggled personally on a personal level getting these concerns met, things that I wanted to see change in. And I feel that representation is lacking once again in our local community inside this riding. Something that I've taken an oath in the past was to properly treat you as a patient, to make the right decisions in the right time, in the right manner, to stand up for you when a doctor or a nurse wasn't doing what was needed to be done. Something that yous all put faith in me as a paramedic once before, and I am no longer a paramedic. But something I'm asking you is to just allow me to once again bring your trust and your decision makings in something that your livelihood is on the line. Our government is an extreme disaster. And I want you to trust me one more time in moving forward again as somebody who's going to serve this community, listen and have a relationship with you, and to be able to tackle some of these chaotic situations that our government has created. Your businesses have been destroyed by government shutdowns. Your lives, you may have lost somebody. You may have had sickness that the government just may not have dealt with properly. These are things that I have recognized on a personal level, but it's something else that the New Blue has also recognized. We want to be able to assure you that we've stood up for you in the past. I have stood up for you in the past. I'm going to continue to stand up for you and hear your voice, because that is what has been missing in our government. The relationship between you and I, and then me with the rest of the the candidates that are going forward now and when they're elected. We need to restore that. You guys need to trust in me and trust in any of the people that you elect. And that's something that you've done in the past, and I'm asking you once again. The New Blue Party has voted down a lot of these bills that you guys have brought up tonight. A lot of the things that you guys are struggling for, Belinda brought forward to our caucus in Toronto and tried to make it not happen. But unfortunately, because you guys did not have a voice, and neither did the rest of Ontario, it happened. And so I'm asking you to let me stand up for you for one more time. We want to get rid of some of these burdens, restore your lives, restore your businesses, and to make your lives normal once again. And as a paramedic, I took that oath to make those decisions, and I'm standing here before you right now. I will do that again. Thank you very much, and remember me on June 2nd.
closing of the closing goes to you, Greg.
I was saying meetings such as this should be held more often for learning experiences for everybody, which I was sort of dismayed tonight that we didn't have someone from the Green Party representing us tonight, because I had a little story from back in the 2011 election. People were saying how green they were. Every party was talking about how green they were. And I had to honestly say in Deep River that night, I said, I only wash my dishes once a month. Now, that's right, a little tear went through the crowd. I said, you have to have a lot of hiding places for it. Underneath drawers, you have to be very thrifty with the amount of dishes you use. But consider that if I only use 1 gallon every month to wash my dishes, that would be 12 gallons a year. Whereas if you wash them 3 times a day, 365 days of the year, you will be washing them and using only 1 gallon, you will use 1,095 gallons. 12 gallons to 1,095 gallons? I said, who's more green? Well, the Green Party candidate didn't come to the rest of the all candidates meetings the whole time, so that fixed it. Anyways, the landowners, I really appreciate you for putting this on tonight. I think we all do. A night to get out. I would caution every landowner who has bush lots and everything to look around that there isn't grow-ups being planted there right now. Be very cautious for the weapons you might be able to be attacked with. I don't expect everybody here to vote for me. Thank you very much, but some of the candidates might want to vote for themselves.
Again, a round of applause for all the candidates for coming this evening. And I have exactly 1 second. There we go. At 9 o'clock, we said I would turn it over to Donna. So round of applause for Donna Burns, who is certainly spearheading this with an incredible we said that one more time, OL18.
Thanks, Randy, and thank you for Action for Canada as well. They helped too. It took the two of us to do this. So this is the close of the debate. So we now have a half hour for anybody that wants to mingle and ask some questions that they didn't get a chance before. And then we will be shutting the doors right at 9:30. So thank you again all for coming out. It was a great evening, great questions, and I learned a lot just to get some insight on how the people think. So thank you again.